Right, listen, I'm going to be honest. We got a spicy one in the background. So my internet cut off, and when I came back on, there was certain accusations being levelled at Leon from COE by Betty. So in the background, as you can see, the avatars are going wild. Betty's going back and forth with Melanated Goddess at the moment. Alright, listen, we're going to go live with this one still. If we'd have carried on with the stream, I would have allowed this to sort of go out. So yeah, big up to the viewers.
You can't give me no advice, boo-boo. You can't give me no advice. You act like a crazy, deranged woman all the damn time. So just shut the hell up with your advice.
Yo, we're back live. We're back live.
Oh, my bad. See, look.
This is the observer effect in action, yeah? The observer effect. You lot have got 12 people watching you. Let's see what happens.
They must be like, what the hell?
Nah.
Go back to
I came to have a conversation. Come on.
Hey, listen.
go back to the
Yo, big up Summayah. Yo, can I also say, Summayah indirectly is responsible for some of the high quality viewing you lot experienced today. She was the first person to bring Uncle Omar onto my panel. And he's big up Summayah. Big up Summayah for the links on links. Is it? Big up the panel, man. Again, I kind of introduced it so that the viewers know there's been a little bit of a passer going on, but I missed it, and I don't know. Like Betty, what's the contention? What's the contention?
They have a personal problem.
If we could keep it like sort of.
Can you shut up? Your name's not actually Betty. Yes. Can you shut up? Yeah. What the problem is, that is some people on the panel have a personal problem with me, and they don't know what the word professionalism is. So instead of them to put their personal feelings aside, because they're talking black and better men, then they want to talk about interracial relationships and stuff. They feel like they have to make personal snide comments and stop me from speaking. Yeah, because they believe that my opinion is not important. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Now, I'm asking them, if you've got a problem with me, come out and say it, editing, and then the show can continue. Be an adult. But they don't seem to be able to do that. They just want to start crying and throw their dolly out the pram.
Maybe they don't want to argue it.
So what was the topic we was talking about, y'all? About underwear and stuff and sexualizing women?
Fetishization.
Yeah, the fetishization of women. I think Betty brought that up.
Just like to point out that Omar was wrong, and it was terrible that no one called him out. He kept on saying slavery ended 400 years ago. That's absolute bullshit. And none of the black people called him out on it. Okay? Slavery ended 1865 in America, ended 1888 in Brazil, ended 1962 in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and ended in 1970 in Oman. That is not 400 years ago. And it's a damn shame that none of the black people called him out on his damning ignorance. That's all I have to say.
I think there's a country where slavery ended. I think as recently as 2006. It's somewhere in
Mauritania.
Mauritania. Yes, it was. Yeah, Mauritania. Yeah.
So that's not 400 years ago, but nobody called him out.
Hey Dan, it cut off, innit?
Yes, we're back on air now. We're back on air. Yeah, we're back on air now.
Okay,
yeah, man, we're
cool. No problem.
Yeah, when we get up and running again quick. Don't really get too sidetracked around here. Hold on. Prophet Wanksy in the chat has just said, laughing my ass off. Nature is all about fetishization of women by males, or we would die out. What did the panel think about that?
100%.
Interesting.
I wanted to add that black men were also raped. We were talking about slavery, and I think the buck breaking is always left out, and we cannot act like men did not experience trauma during slavery as well. Buck breaking is definitely something that occurred. Also, they were castrated, due to penis envy. Black men had, I guess, obviously larger penises, and their penises were cut off not to tempt the white women and just to kind of be another way to demean them. So when we're talking about right after slavery and how the transition of mingling and how that could have been done with ease, it's not only the women having to cope with their trauma of what happened to them or their grandmothers or their mothers, but it's also what happened to their grandfathers, their fathers, and themselves. So that's all.
Can I respond to the guy that you read out just now? He said about the fetish thing. I don't agree with what he said. I think natural human attraction exists between us, but I think obviously between the genders. But when you take the human body and then monetize it and make it into a product that you use to sell cars, that you use to sell music, that you use to sell perfumes, then it becomes a bit more than what nature has created, which is, you know, the inherent desire between the genders.
Just to add, that's objectification, just so that we're the difference.
Objectification and not fetishization.
Yeah, but I think
that's a useful distinction.
Fetishization came up, I think, when we noticed in kind of in reference to someone like Nicki Minaj, or let's say ladies with a, you know, fuller figures, or I don't know if we say blacker figures. I don't know what the correct term is, but you know what I mean. Where when we say, you know, Victoria's Secrets, I think one of the sisters said, and these kind of beauty standards and beauty norms, and then all of a sudden when the big butt and all these things came about, there was an element of that. There was an element of things that maybe from slavery time, that there was a lady, I think even Betty's made a show about her. There was a lady with a big bottom from South Africa who they put in the museums for people to stare at. Yeah. And then from that to now, all of a sudden, you put on a hip hop video and there's, you know, a form of fetishization there.
So, because a black woman is only valued for the sums of her parts, but the same paradigm exists in white women, because there are many white feminists that have written about objectification, where you'll see many billboard ads where only you see the breasts, you don't see the woman, and that is
I remember the Wonder Bra advert. Do you remember?
Yeah, the Wonder Bra advert. That is training society, especially the males, to only value the breasts and to sexualize, you know, the reproductive organs. But another thing is, because black women have gone through a trauma, they must also reclaim their sexuality and reclaim their bodies, because one of the other side effects of, you know, objectification, and this sort of fits into beauty standards, and African beauty standards, where the dominant beauty standard in Africa is a fuller figure, big butt, hips, a woman with weight. And, you know, you have black women that are dying right now because they're injecting, you know, silicone into their butts in order to fit, you know, an African beauty standard. So they are things that are going on in the black woman's psyche that needs to be dealt with. So how can you really love yourself when you're comfortable with yourself?
I wanna, and I hope I don't come across too ignorant. I'm probably not as knowledgeable on these topics as most of the people in the panel. So, but I want to really understand this trauma that you mentioned, because Betty, you and I, obviously, we're from Africa. Although we went through colonization, I'm not very comfortable with the idea of black women as though we're carrying this trauma of rape, because I don't think that's true. And of course, there's historical rapes that happen, maybe, let's say in slavery or something like that. But these are historical events. Are we necessarily now assuming that all black women are carrying this historical trauma?
I would say you don't have to be rated in order to carry the historical experience of how black women have been treated. A section of black women were treated as subhuman, raped and stuff like this. But you will be judged by that, because the dominant society see black women lesser. They see them like, you know, a sexual fetish. I've lived in the Netherlands, and I know when I was living in the Netherlands, I had several different white men ask me if I was a prostitute. And then I had so many different other black women say the same thing. When you go into the very white areas of Europe, black women are treated a certain way, regardless of how they dress.
Can I ask you, is this because of historical traumas, as you put it, or is this because now let me just say, or is this because financial situations have meant that certain Black women have gone into the sex industry, and maybe in that society there was a perception in their mind that, you know, because of the economics of these women, it could have been maybe immigrant women coming from Africa going into prostitution. So these men, what they perceived was, oh, that community, they must be prostitutes. Not necessarily.
I would say it's both. How can you separate it? The Black women that are going into prostitution right now in Europe are going into prostitution because of the undevelopment of Africa and the colonization of Africa. Yeah, there are people from the Edo, the Benin, you know, empire, which used to be the Benin Empire, that are now being trafficked right into Italy, into Germany. Yeah. And that's because the after effect of the British smashing that civilization, and it's left, you know, a vacuum, what they say, vacuum of power. Yeah. So without that, without colonization and slavery, would Black women have been seen in that way? Would those societies been able to provide enough jobs and stuff like that? I don't know how you can separate the, you know, the prostitution that's going on in Europe and the, you know, the trafficking, because I think Nigeria is the third most place for sex trafficking in the UK out of 2 other countries. That Nigerian women are sex trafficked into the UK. How do we separate that from colonization and neocolonialism?
So this is the economics of the nation is forcing these women into looking for finances outside the country. Then, so I can see where you're relating it to colonization, but it doesn't stretch back to slavery, really, does it?
How does it not? Because colonization and slavery are related. They're not the same thing, but they are related. Because there were Black women in Africa that were raped by the colonial soldiers.
I just don't know if we can necessarily tie all the ills and just say that.
So what do you think it is then? If you don't think it's to do with colonization, you must have an idea of what you think it is then.
I think it's to do with poverty. Sorry.
Okay. But what caused the poverty in Africa? He's still there.
Oof. Penny dropped.
Sorry, I have a call. I'll be back.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
Big up to Tash back on the panel as well. Big up. So, what's the current topic? I've walked away for like 2 secs.
About sex slavery. We're talking about objectification of Black women. We're talking about whether or not it's related to colonization and slavery and the sex trafficking. I'm putting out there that the way Black women are seen globally is an after effect of colonization and slavery. And also one of the after effects is the sex trafficking of African women into Europe. You know, the sister is saying that she does not believe that the rape of African American women is the same in Africa on the colonial context, and that African women were not raped in the same scale. She doesn't think it affects how African American women were raped. Yeah, she does not think it affects us Africans who don't descend from enslaved Africans. She thinks it only the way African American women are objectified, it only affects them. I think it affects all Black women globally.
No, not the object. I'm not saying the objectification part doesn't affect. I think that would affect all wider societies. To be honest with you, but what was the other point you made? It's slavery, like the trauma of the rape of the slavery. Of course, I look at it. Okay, if it's gonna, if I read it, of course, it's gonna impact me on a psychological, human level, and I'm gonna have sympathy and compassion. I want to understand that, but I don't know that the trauma you talk about in the sense of where I'm carrying it as though I personally experienced rape, because I didn't.
No, I'm not saying that you're carrying it, but what I'm saying is that the dominant society, when I don't know if you've ever been to the very white parts of Europe, how you would be perceived as a Black woman compared to your white counterpart.
I went to Sweden, and it was predominantly white.
Okay, and so how were you perceived? Because many black women are complaining that they're perceived as prostitutes, regardless of how they're dressed.
But the thing is, do you relate that back to slavery? That's what I'm saying. I understand that perception, and as I answered to you, I think the kind of maybe works that they go into, or the kind of exposure that they have to black people, maybe may create that impression to these people.
So I was going to say, don't you think that the popular depiction of black women in mainstream media, especially in like hip hop and all of these things, is part to do with the perception of black women in general for people that don't necessarily interact with black people on a daily basis. If all they're seeing is women in the hip hop music videos or on Instagram showing off their everything, then
yes, I
they're gonna put 2 and 2 together and be like, raw. Like this is my only, before actually meeting you as a black person face to face, my only perception of black women has been what I've been seeing in music and TV and Instagram when they're in Dubai, looking like they're being flown out there.
Yeah,
basically, I'm saying they don't look like they're doing themselves no good favors. You get me?
Yeah, man.
What you saying? Tag your sponsor.
Tag your sponsor. You know about them ones.
Yeah.
Tag your
oh yeah, I know about that one. Jesus Christ.
Goofy hoes.
Madness.
Bookie stuff. But no, that's a good point. Like I think Tash and Leon are making a really good point when it comes to obviously the perception that you have beforehand, and I think you can see this with a lot of like the problems that they're having in Germany and stuff like that. Like a lot of the media that they've been depicted to are Caucasian women from America, and a lot of the times they're not the most flattering kind of like characters.
So why do you feel? Let me ask the woman them. Why do you feel that the woman them, like I hear you say that the man them objectify women in the music videos and all that, but why do they play those roles though? Why do you even agree to be the music video hoe? I get the champagne poured all over you in skimpy clothing and all of that. Why do you even agree to that?
Monetary gains, I would say. And also, you know, when you talked about earlier, Cardi B was mentioned, and I think also I understand where Betty's coming from. I think seeing her rise to the top and almost coming like a darling of hip hop music and all these things, and gaining an amount of respectability. Why wouldn't you think that young girls would be influenced by that and the path that led her to that? So yeah, it's monetary and worldly gains, I would say, that they would make those choices.
Ain't gonna front back when man was in school and all of that. It wasn't popular to be a hoe. Like the man them used to dislike, even though they used to do their thing one away, they used to do that one away. Like no girl was out here trying to be like, yeah, I'm a hoe, I'm out and proud as a hoe. Yeah. Girls them used to keep that shit like it wasn't good for your dating prospects.
I think it's about not slut shaming. Yeah, it's about a woman reclaiming her sexuality and a black woman being proud of who she is and how she was made. Yeah. Now, in terms of what woman doesn't want to be, you know, revered for her womanhood.
Well, but Betty, I'm a bit confused, because if you're saying that someone like Cardi B should be respected because they promote marriage or the marital bond.
No, Cardi B should be respected for being a whole woman. She's not. She's a mother. She's married.
Did you say being a whole?
And she's a great. Can you let me finish?
I just wanted to get clarity. Did you say being a whole
woman?
Okay.
If you actually keep quiet, you'll actually hear what I've got to say. Yeah.
Or I might miss it and have to ask again for clarity.
She's a music artist. Yeah. She's a music artist. She's a talented writer. She's a mother, and she's a great dancer, and she was a pole dancer, and she's a woman.
And she's a goofy hoe as well.
That's your perception. That's your perception. You think.
Betty, can I ask you a question?
What do you mean by being a hoe? Because you want.
Can I ask you a question, Betty?
I said a goofy hoe. A goofy hoe. She encourages man. I mean, she encourages girls to line man up for like honey traps and all of them things. That's goofy. It's a hoe.
Goofy. You mean the femme fatale?
Sell sex for money.
Oh, so prostitution. So you think Cardi B promotes prostitution?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how you get that, but
from her music, and her life story.
Yeah.
She said that she man up.
I mean, this
how
is
that prostitution? What is it? So you don't. So
selling your panani money.
So you believe that a woman doesn't have a right? Leon, you saying you believe a woman doesn't have a right to sell her body since she owns it?
She can do what with her body, but when she does, it's gonna change my perception of her. I'm saying I don't want her personally.
Okay, so you slut shaming.
What does that even mean?
Do you believe that a man has a right to do what he wants with his own body?
He can do what he wants with his body as well.
But if a woman chooses not to be with that man, if a woman chooses not to be with that man for the same reason that Leon's just described, he wouldn't want to be with a slut, so to speak, then I suppose a woman has the right to do that. But I mean, it's actually flipped, because typically women are attracted to men who can sleep with multiple women. It's proof of their virility. It's proof of their attractiveness. It's proof of their status.
I wrote this a long time ago. Still, if a man, what I'm saying. You see, a man and a woman is like a key and a lock. Now, a key that's able to open many doors is a master key.
Come on now, let's not.
A lock opened by any key is a rubbish lock. It's no good.
Yo, I like that one, you know. I like, even Raj come off mute for that one. Raj came off mute for that one.
Let's keep moving.
Oh no.
Oh, Leo, bro, I disagree, you know.
No, but hold on. So wait,
can I point out that women are actually judged? One of the reasons why one of the questions that you pose is, why would women want to be revered for their beauty? Women are judged collectively on their beauty. Men are judged on their intelligence and their strength. Women are not collectively judged on their intelligence. And you can tell this by the fact that the first universities, the first educations was for boys and for men. It was not for girls. When you look at the funding and you look at the books that are published, most of them are published for men, by men. When you look at Carly B's story, she says she got kicked out of home, was desperate, and was in a bad relationship where she was getting abused, and she had to turn to stripping in order to get out of that abusive relationship. And she used that money to go to college. Then after time, she wanted to stay in the strip club because she didn't want to do the college anymore. That is her story. So that will tell you why women would want to sell what they have.
You said she had to do it. That's an option.
That's what she had to do.
No, it's an option. It's not. She didn't have to do it. She wasn't forced.
How do you know it was an option for her? Are you her?
Because she doesn't have. No one is forced into that. It's a choice.
That's not true. There are plenty of women that are forced.
So you're saying she was forced into, sliding down a pole?
There's plenty of women that are forced into sex work. And
I'm asking you about this particular woman who's got 50
You're telling me that they are not that forced into sex work?
No,
I'm asking you about her. Look, guys, it's
not necessarily. You don't know if it's her.
For a lot of these women, don't entertain this nonsense. It's a load of rubbish.
Now, this is it.
We should want more for our sisters. We should want more.
Like her story. You want to tell her story for her.
No, I asked you. If you can prove that she was forced into it, I'm prepared to take it.
You can't prove that she wasn't.
I've listened to some of her streams, and she doesn't say anything about being forced into it.
That's not true. That's not true.
She was in a dark place, a space where she didn't feel she could get out, and that was an option that she chose. There's other options people choose all the time.
Let's go get a job, man. Be a people boy or something, man.
That's not an option that she chose.
Okay.
She came out of an abusive relationship, and that was the quickest way to make money, and she did not have the money to pay the rent.
But would you say that's a respectable career?
Yes,
guys. Can I?
So therefore, I mean, it's not being forced into something that you consider to be a respectable career. Though I'm not sure about that. If you were going to say she was forced to someone's just said so if you were forced to flip burgers in like a burger bar for $2 an hour or something, that's That's being forced.
Good
Flip your burgers.
Good point. I mean, how can you be forced into something and then also be respectable? And
can I have your dignity, mate?
Can I quickly point out, guys?
What I would say is that a woman has a right to do what she wants with her own body.
True.
And they are men, whether you like pole dancers or not, they are men that want to see women dance. Erotic dancing goes back all the way until ancient Egypt. On the walls of Kemet, you have black women in the nude with their butt hanging out and their tits hanging out dancing.
Yeah, that's a different.
The harp,
They were the goofy holes.
Leon, you may not pay for a woman to erotically dance, but you do not represent the men in the club that will pay. Yeah?
Reggie's
you know what, Becky, if women didn't do it and left it to their husbands, these men wouldn't have the option to go and watch it.
If you don't like it, you don't.
You're providing them a service, not you, but the women are providing them a service.
Yeah, because
they leave it to your husband.
Men want to see women dance as they want to see women have sex. Okay. They want to see porn stars.
All right.
Yeah, you may not be the man or the woman that likes that, but you don't have the right to close down the men and women that
is available. Becky, in certain parts of the world, this service isn't available.
But you don't live in them certain parts of the world.
But I'm just saying it happens. So you're giving them a service, so the option is there for the man to watch it. If the service wasn't there, there would be no option to do it.
But that doesn't exist. The world that you talk about doesn't exist.
Well, I've just told you there are parts of the world.
Name a top country where you can't do erotic dancing, then.
I believe in Indonesia, if I'm correct, there are parts that is completely banned. Well, so I was looking at a documentary about it. Sorry?
Well, Tash, you should go and live there since you don't like the idea.
I don't live there.
Go and live there because I believe that women have the rights to do what they want with their bodies. And if men want to watch...
I'm just trying to protect women, Betty, because a lot of them are abused in those kind of industries and sexually...
Well, women get abused in all industries. Women get abused in the office.
I'm not that. I think they're more likely to be abused in those industries.
Racially. And they're not selling. They're not selling themselves sexually, and they're getting abused. Women get abused in all industries.
Okay.
When did Malik and Scatter jump off?
You're not forced to.
A little while ago.
I don't believe Cardi B. I think she's a very intelligent woman. I think she's a hard. She works hard, but I don't think she needed to do it. So.
But that's all right. But to me, it seems like you're more worried about the influence that Cardi B and women like her.
Oh, most definitely, I am. She's got 53 million followers, and I want more for young women. Well, I want more Michelle Obamas. I would like less Cardi B's.
So what are you doing to uplift those women if you want more?
Well, I've told you what I do. I do it, and I hear them talking about Cardi B all the time. And they want to fight this girl and fight that girl, and tear up their clothing in front of and video themselves in front of boys at the age of 12. I want that to come to an end.
So why don't you work towards that then?
Well, I try my best.
And what?
I'm one person, but I do try my best. I'm telling you that it's not good. I'm doing something here. I'm not.
You're actually just raising awareness, but
I'm not enabling.
You must be doing something else than just raising awareness, because you see.
Well, we can go back and forth with this. I'm just stating that there's a problem with it. I've noticed it. I've spoken to those that have this kind of connection with this kind of lifestyle about it. But I think we should all kind of be aware of it and conscious of it, and realize it's quite detrimental to our young people.
Are you blaming Cardi B for girl gangs? Is that what you're saying? That she's influencing.
Oh my word!
She's blaming Cardi B. She's blaming Cardi B, not Cardi B.
What you think it is?
I'm not blaming Cardi B. I'm just saying, like, kind of reckless behaviour. Cardi B, I think it was only a few months ago, went into I think it was a fashion week thing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And had a fight with another artist. I mean,
Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, and it's just not on.
Okay, then the only thing you can do, if you don't like her behaviour, you just have to work with the youth. There are many youth organisations. We need
to condemn it as a society and say that it's wrong and not give these kind of things the platform that she has. You know, I want obviously her to feed her family, and I'm glad that she's married, but I'd also like her to respect herself as well.
But that's subjective. That's your opinion. You believe.
It is my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. You believe that she doesn't respect herself. But
well, I see it mimicked in young people, and I think it's not good.
The only thing you can do is, because you're never going to change Cardi B, but what you can do is change the young girls around you and young women, and be that role model that you want to see. Be the woman that you want to see, and they will then look at you as an
I'm trying my best.
But do you not think it's interesting, Betty, that a woman like Cardi B is essentially relying on the resources of men to furder her kind of progress? Well, I mean, if you're talking about strip clubs, and if you're talking about that,
how is she relying on the resources of mainly men when she's the one with the panani, the booty, and the fake ass? She's the woman.
Yeah, but that's exchanged for the resources of the audience, no?
Yeah, but she has what the men want. Can the men start a strip club with men in it and make the same money?
Let me make a raw biological argument. Cardi B is only going to maintain her figure, we could say, for, let's say, maybe the next 15 or 20 years. 20 years, she might have kids. She might completely give up on the sort of the need to be sort of aesthetically appealing or whatever. Strippers have a shelf life. You can't be stripping until you're old and grey. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's some very niche stripper clubs out there where that's what you can get if that's your fetish. I don't know, but there's a sense you've got a shelf life. It's like footballers.
Strippers age like bread.
She's only 25. She's only 25.
She's 25.
I think she's about 25, 27. But for one, she's already had a child. But Carly is a multi-million-dollar artist. She has a husband. She won't need to strip forever because she got a husband.
So are you arguing that leveraging one's femininity is all right for a period of time?
Let's compare Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell is a model. She's done nude modeling. There's quite a few pictures of Naomi Campbell. She's knocking 50. Yeah, she's still harnessing her sexuality to make money. So.
Look. Naomi Campbell is gliding down poles. She's worked hard, but
she's a nude model. She's done nude modeling.
Sorry, Leon said the strippers age like bread, Fuck you know, yo, that one hit me.
That's too funny, fam.
That one hit me on the rebound, man.
That's a bread.
All those women are using their sexuality. Naomi Campbell's nearly 50. She's done nude model. You can see her nude, yeah. Same thing. There's many of these women, yeah, but she's knocking 50 and she's still able to harness her sexuality. I would suggest, because she's not married, she don't have kids, she's gonna have to do that. But Carly B is a married woman. She's not gonna.
Sorry, you're saying that Naomi Campbell. Can you actually let me finish? I find that hard to believe.
Can you let me finish? Yeah. She's not gonna be. Carly B is not gonna have to do that at 50.
Cardi.
She's not a man. Stop telling me how to say Carly B. Yeah.
Well, it's not Carly.
I'm gonna say it. Carly B. Yeah. Carly B is not gonna have to do that at 50. Yes. Because she's married and she's got kids. Naomi Campbell is still doing that at 50 because she doesn't have kids and she's not married. That is the difference. That's the economics of it, Dan.
I mean, I think the point that I was trying to make.
They are men that still want to see a woman at 50 in the nude.
Yeah, but the thing is those men
want to see women that are young.
All right, so here's my thing. Rich men are always going to be rich men, whether or not the stripper who is dancing in front of them is able to strip in 10 years' time or not. They're still probably going to have millions in the bank then. So it doesn't really matter. As long as the institution of the strip club exists, then essentially for a rich man that's alive today, there are kids now who are like 4 and 5 years old walking around in society who in 20 years, if he still wants to frequent strip clubs, will be the ones who are dancing for him as young flesh kind of thing, right? So this industry goes on, and I'm reading more and more stories about women who are in the UK now who are, because of the increasing rise in tuition fees, etc., who are turning to sex work and certain websites and escorting, all that sort of stuff just to get through uni. Now, listen, when I was paying a $1,000 a year for university back in 2004 for tuition fees, people weren't doing this. It wasn't done. Like, this is now a new socio-economic reality that we live in, where people feel that they need to, for one reason or another, financial or otherwise, do something to kind of address some kind